This is The Litter Box, a Detroit Lions podcast with your hosts, Chet West and Bill Patterson.
Welcome to the Detroit Lions Litter Box. I am one of your co-hosts, Billy P. from the D with Chet West. And Chet, we have a division game this weekend at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Don't forget to set your clocks back an hour. Everybody gets an extra hour of sleep. And the Lions are taking on the Minnesota Vikings at Ford Field. Chet, you are a resident of the Twin Cities.
I am.
What are the local folks saying about your Vikings?
Not a lot of good things so far this season. I mean, they aren't, they're not exactly in the crapper per se. They're sitting at the bottom of a very, let's just say, competitive division. I would say they've kind of thrown this season in the hamper, though. They're 3-4, and they're in last place in a competitive division, and they're 3-4, and they feel like the season's over. Wentz was fun for about a week. People sort of saw enough of that. They want J.J. McCarthy back. I think they feel it's their best chance to win any games at all, more or less the division. I think the division is, in the rearview mirror at this point. This is a rebuild season for them to some degree or another. And I don't see the J.J. McCarthy hype. Maybe he's going to prove me wrong this weekend, but from what I saw from him, yes, athletic, quick, still very young, still very green. Technically his second NFL season, but his first playing time that he has seen. I don't think the hype justifies the output so far. We'll see what we get though. But outside of J.J. McCarthy, Wentz is out for the season now. So if something happens to JJ, it's the Max Brosmer show, which is not a pretty show for what we've seen so far. John Wolford is the only other guy they've got, and that's on their practice squad. So it's JJ McCarthy or bust at this point at quarterback. They have a slew of injuries on their line and throughout their defense. They've got guys out. A gentleman that you know well, Jeff Okudah, I believe is in concussion protocol right now, so we probably will not see him this coming week.
That's a disappointment because I was really hoping he'd be on the field to get torched.
I know.
By Amon St. Brown and
He did not
JMO.
practice. He did not practice Wednesday. So due to the concussion protocol. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here in this game. I've waffled on this. This is one of those games I feel like the Lions could have a little letdown and make it real close one way or the other in the end. But based on kind of just what I've seen from McCarthy, I just don't know if he's going to have our number or not. We'll see. It's at Ford Field. So, we'll save everything for the predictions at the end of the show. It's a rebuilding year for the Vikings. Aaron Jones has been hurt. J.J. McCarthy's unproven. They still have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison who can probably torch any defensive backfield in the league if given the opportunity. The question is, can the line block?
So it seems like the Vikings signed the wrong veteran quarterback in Carson Wentz, who's now, as you mentioned, out for the season. Where you look at what Joe Flacco's been able to do in Cincinnati, connecting with Jamar Chase. I mean, why would it be any different, if he was doing that with Justin Jefferson? So a couple things I wanted to comment on. We get to see McCarthy. I think that's going to be exciting for everyone. And I think the key to the game is going to be that both starting tackles for the Vikings are battling knee injuries. They have practiced, but it's been limited. And so we're talking about Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw both battling knee injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And Darrisaw was a full participant yesterday. O'Neill was limited, but knee injuries are tricky. I know offensive linemen wear braces. I fully expect the newly extended Aiden Hutchinson and our guy Bob Muhammad feast on what is a banged up offensive line for the Minnesota Vikings.
I am with you on that. I agree with you. I think if they're going to win this game, they're going to make the day absolute hell for J.J. McCarthy. They're going to be running after him left and right, and his athleticism will be on display. I do, the general tenor around Minnesota sports right now isn't great. Minnesota dropped a game to Iowa this past weekend. Iowa scored more points than they've scored in I don't know how many seasons in a game against a Big Ten team.
They didn't drop a game. They got absolutely trounced or walked off the field.
Yes, they got absolutely trounced. And in the process, you got, there's a lot of memes and a lot of videos going around social media right now of people ranting about how hard it is to be a Minnesota sports fan. They just endured a terrible season with the Twins. I don't know what the Wild is doing. I'm not a massive hockey fan living in Minnesota, which is an anomaly in itself with that. But it is it's the dark days here in Minnesota. You got Anthony Edwards is out injured for the T-Wolves. So I enjoy watching them suffer, but also can relate as a Detroit sports fan. These cities are not like Chicago and Detroit, or even maybe Green Bay and Detroit, or Cleveland and Detroit. They don't. If you go to a game here, it's. I remember coming to games here when I first moved here. I went to the last game in the Metrodome. It was Lions Vikings, last game of the season. Both teams were terrible. All their stars were hurt. I think the game ended like 13-3 or 9-3 or something awful. And the 9 was because like an extra point got missed. It was just that bad. And I remember just sitting there with the fans. It was more of like a commiseration together. It was like, yeah, you guys have always stunk. We've always stunk. And then the Vikings got some good years in there after that. They went to the NFC Championship game a couple times. They looked, they got Justin Jefferson. He looked like an all-star, all-pro. You get Kirk Cousins, Captain Kirk, with his gold chains on the flights and everything. He was looking like a pimp. And then all of a sudden, they ditch him. They get McCarthy. Things kind of go. Sam Darnold has this one great season, but then flails in the playoffs. I think they're in this rebuild, this unintentional rebuild. I don't think they thought they would be rebuilding right now. So I think that's where the disappointment is.
Is the general consensus that Sam Darnold's missed at this point and that they regret not re-signing him?
I don't think so, because the season ended. It was kind of like once Sam Darnold got figured out last year, teams started to make life difficult for the Vikings.
Yeah, but the Seahawks are doing well under his.
I know. There he is. It's like
and
the guy,
your third string quarterback last year, Daniel Jones, has the Colts off to an amazing start.
Exactly. And and you look at like the Flacco having success, Daniel Jones having success, and who do they end up getting was Wentz as the backup. And it was just kind of, they had a lot put on JJ McCarthy being the real deal this season, and he got hurt again. And so he's coming out of that. We'll see how he does. He may come out tomorrow and prove everybody right in thinking that he was the next coming here. I hope he doesn't do that against our Lions, but it would definitely be one of those things where it might perk some people up here in the Twin Cities.
Well, let's go back to that. They've only played one division game, the Vikings, and they beat the Bears in Monday Night Football week 1. So they're 1-0 in the division.
In a game when the Bears were not quite together yet, right? Like I would say the Bears team now is better than it was then.
Okay, but still you're 1-0 in your division. Yeah. With 5 left to play, to punt on the season seems very premature to me. Yeah. I do have some angst, though. I cannot stand your general manager. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but it's like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Yeah. He's done nothing thus far in the draft. And if McCarthy doesn't work out, it's really going to be a black mark against him. Yep. He inherited a lot of good players. Your safety, Harrison Smith, is one of the best.
He's begun to catch heat. I mean, he's begun to catch heat.
Because all he does is free agency all the time, and the Vikings kind of rebuild. But as you and I know, that is not the way to sustain greatness in the NFL, which brings me back to kudos to Brad Holmes.
Yes.
He did it again. He re-signed Aiden Hutchinson, and I think this is key for a couple things. One, it's not as much money as what Micah Parsons got in Green Bay, so he's not truly the highest paid edge. But he got more guaranteed money.
He got the most guaranteed money,
and that's all that matters. Yeah. And he's a team leader. He's a part of the fabric of the Detroit Grit Lions.
Sure.
He's one of Dan Campbell's top lieutenants and captains. And I think that this is just yet another feather in the cap, which leads me to a question, Chet.
They're really taking care of their guys. There was a list that came out the other day of all the guys that are their guys that they've signed. It's an impressive list of monetary commitment. I was shocked when I saw it.
So we can go down that list. I mean, Kirby Joseph, they've got secured. Obviously, Hutch, Sewell, St. Brown, Jameson, Jared Goff, and then Aleem McNeil. So the next men up would probably be Jack Campbell, possibly Brian Branch, who will be back this week from his one-game suspension, and
Jahmyr Gibbs.
I don't. He's the one.
Everybody's saying they don't know if he's getting. Everybody wants it, but running backs are so fragile to the point where, what do you do?
The other thing we need to keep in mind is that don't be surprised if Laporta gets extended before either he or Campbell, because they're first round picks, and so the 5th-year option is automatically kicks in provided the team wants it. So the Lions have more control over Campbell and Gibbs than they would anybody outside of the first round. So that's going to be an interesting thing to see unfold. The other good news, I guess, if we can switch, away from the Vikings over to the Lions, is Malcolm Rodriguez is back and Vaki's practicing again, which could help immensely in the special teams. And our guy, your guy, Terrion Arnold, is a full participant in practice at the last 2 days.
So I'm going to go back to something about the contract issues here real quick. Laporta is actually the one guy they think is the odd man out right now.
Huh.
Because tight ends just being one of those things that are a bit more replaceable, even though he's very good at what he does. They're saying that he could be, there's just been a few things out there that he could be the guy getting replaced. It's just talk right now. He may get the next extension, but I found it pretty interesting. Sorry. Let's go on with the injury report.
Well, actually, can I ask my question to you on this? Because we've kind of touched on some of the injuries, and then we'll do a deeper dive. I was reading Bill Barnwell today, who's one of my go-tos for the NFL at ESPN.com, and he said that the Lions' window is closing. And his exact words were that this is the best opportunity, 2025, because they have so many young guys that they need to sign and that eventually the money will grow tight. My argument is they've already taken care of most of those guys.
Yeah.
Like, the list is small, Chet. Branch.
Well, what does the window
Laporta
have to do with, really? Is it the rest of the competition around them? Or is it their team? Because if they're signing all these guys and locking these guys up through what looks like almost 2029, 2030, 2028.
Well, they're age 30 seasons is basically what they're doing.
So, what I see a window that goes for another 3 to 4 years, in my opinion.
That's mine as well. So I don't know why he feels that this year is the best year.
Sometimes I think people, I think writers or people in the media, even you and I, if you want to throw us into the lot, like to poke the bear a little bit. We like to sit and, time's running out. Got to do something. Why? Because guess what's coming up Tuesday, the trade deadline. So it makes for a very, pressing discussion to sit here and say, time's running out. They better do something big before the deadline. It creates conversation. It creates worry. It creates fear. We love to create fear these days, right? I mean, who doesn't like to create fear to draw attention? So this is kind of these writers doing this. I think sometimes they think like, if I write, if I go out there with this, it's the end. They got to do something now. It creates that panic and the fans get in a frenzy and they get more readers that way. If he sat there and said, hey, the Lions have a huge window here. They got 4 years to figure this thing out. Does that make for good talk or story? Probably not.
It doesn't.
Not good copy, right?
And the fact remains that thus far, the Lions have been pretty fortunate with the guys they have extended in terms of not having the injury bug hit them. Another guy that we need to talk about that was extended, but just not that recently, was Taylor Decker. So they really have taken care of everybody. And he's retired now, but Frank Ragnow was another one that they took care of. So, the only guy that was an all-pro or a Pro Bowl player that they allowed to leave in free agency was Jonah Jackson, and that proved to be wise as well. So at this point, I have full faith in Chris Spielman, Brad Holmes, Rod Wood, Martha Firestone, Ford, and MCDC Dan Campbell. So I don't feel that strongly about it. I know you wanted to talk to me a little bit about the trade deadline because part of the reason that maybe this happened at the time it did in terms of the Hutch extension is maybe that does free up a little bit more money. The Lions have about $25 million or so in cap space right now. And so I think one of your questions as we texted offline is, who would I want to see come in if the Lions did decide to be aggressive and make a move?
Trade deadline's Tuesday. Okay, so Tuesday's trade deadline, November 4th. And some stuff's starting to come out about who the Lions should be pursuing. What do you think is our biggest area of need via the trade deadline, via a trade? Where do you think the Lions can do the most for their team?
Well, I think that you could still use another edge rusher. And why I think that is because I don't know when Marcus Davenport is going to be back. MCDC did have some good news in his press conference where he said that he does expect him back this season, but he wasn't sure when and what that would look like when he comes back. This is one of the knocks that we've had about Marcus Davenport ever since he was signed as a free agent from the New Orleans Saints is he's always hurt. So with that, being known and that we know that Bob Muhammad has played exceptionally well, but he could be on borrowed time. I think the biggest need for the Lions right now and most realistic get would be trading some day 3 picks. What that looks like, I don't know, a 4th, 5th, 6th round, I guess 5th, 6th round picks. And taking the salary of Jalen Phillips, the edge for the Dolphins, who seem to be on a pretty quick track to nowhere. They play this evening against the Ravens, who are expecting Lamar Jackson back and who have underachieved greatly this season. In fact, it's kind of a battle between the two most underachieving teams to date. So Jalen Phillips would probably be my guy. If you could get a swing tackle or a backup tackle, that'd be great. But Chet, teams, as we've documented before, don't let go of good offensive linemen. Anything we get is probably the equivalent to Giovanni Manu, who was not great filling in for Taylor Decker, but at least he's ours and he's working with Hank Fraley. He's practicing. He knows the culture. He knows what's expected. So if it's not Jalen Phillips, now that Trey Hendrickson's hurt, which I always thought was a pie in the sky reach anyway, I don't see a whole lot else.
So you're thinking edge is what will help us the most right now. And I don't disagree. I think edges you can never have enough of them, right? And I think I was just reading this past week that one of Brad Holmes' quotes about his search last year for an edge when they grabbed Za'Darius was how difficult it was to get teams to part with their edge rushers, even guys that were 3 and 4 down the depth chart, because the line of thinking was, if I lose one, then all I got are 3. I need to run 2 of them out there at a time. So it's not something that people are readily willing to give up. You have to have quite a bit of depth there.
And then left tackles or right tackles are even less so.
And we could definitely use, a left tackle. Not only just for now, but the future too. I mean, we don't know what Decker's future looks like right now.
No.
So there's 2 positions where I think we could definitely use some help in the deadline. And I think all we will get at those positions is some, a good fill-in guy, somebody to play a few downs here and there to give people a breather. I don't think we're getting somebody starter caliber who can come in and start in front of one of our guys at either one of those positions. Now, defensive back, cornerbacks seem to, not grow on trees, good ones at least, but they seem to be a little more available at the trade deadline. Do you think we need any more help in the defensive backfield?
I think we always do. And I'm going to give you a name that I think the Lions could trade. So they're in either conjunction with draft picks or solo on his own.
Right.
And that would be Roy Lopez.
Okay.
Who was signed as a free agent. He's not seen many meaningful snaps, if any at all. And he was a starter last year for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And in their top 3 defensive lineman depth, I could see him being a piece because defensive linemen are always needed.
Yeah.
He probably doesn't really, he's a rental at this point for the Lions. I don't see him being a long-term solution. So he might be a piece that I could see being moved.
Now that Aleem is back and healthy, and they've got the guy they drafted, and Williams, seems like they may have a glut of D tackles now. Again, depth being key here. It's great to be able to have a Roy Lopez come flying in when somebody gets hurt or something, but at some point, you've got to fill in other areas likewise where you're not as wealthy. I agree with you there too. I think Roy could be a good trade piece if somebody wants to take him on or needs him for their line. But yeah, it's a 1-year deal.
Why I brought him up is I don't think there's anything damaged about him or wrong with him.
No.
I just don't think he's good enough.
Just don't know if he's going to get the opportunities here. Right?
Yes.
Like he could help somebody else out a lot more.
Yes.
So I think we're in lockstep here. We're looking at a pie in the sky would be like a edge rusher or a tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly, but more realistically, we possibly look at something like a D-back, a fill-in D-back, or somebody to play with the rest of the guys that are back there right now.
A move that I liked that another team did, and it's always kind of funny because they're the Detroit Lions West Coast, was Les Snead and the Rams signed Roger McCreary. They did a trade just as a defensive backup. And I would look at him as like Rock Ya-Sing. It's just a reclamation project, change of scenery, a depth piece.
Switch him up a little, whatever, something like that.
We'll see. That could be, not McCreary, but somebody like that.
Yeah. So let's transition here to the injury report. We just had our bye week. We just came out of the bye. I know we've got some changes here for the injuries. We got some expectations as to who will play and who won't play this week. Bill, what do you have as far as injuries go?
So the only real concerns, Chet, are Kirby Joseph and that knee that's bothering him, and Craig Reynolds, who let's admit he is a fourth string back. You and I talked about that Sione Vaki is back from his groin injury, so that kind of replaces Reynolds' needs on special teams, etc. Taylor Decker's still battling that shoulder, but practicing. Avonte Maddox is still dealing with his hamstring, but practicing. Bob Muhammad, our guy, is dealing with a hamstring, but still practicing.
Okay.
You mentioned Malcolm Rodriguez is back from his knee injury. And then Daniel Thomas, who was a bit piece in the Legion of Whom last week, is also battling a forearm injury. And then good news, Terrion Arnold is apparently very healthy from his shoulder and been a full participant in practice.
Good. I'm glad to see we're going to get a couple of these guys back on the field. And if at the very least it provides some depth. And we're not as thin as wondering who's going to play what position 3 days before the game starts. So that's kind of nice. Bye week came at the right time, I would say.
And then on the Vikings side, their fullback, CJ Ham, has a hand injury, and he did not practice. Jeff Okudah, who you mentioned earlier, has a concussion, did not practice. That one, I'm very dubious whether he plays. Josh Oliver, one of their backup tight ends, is battling a foot injury. And then you've got Jonathan Greenyard and Andrew Van Ginkel, who are their two outside linebackers and kind of edges, if you would. They're both battling injuries. Greenyard's an ankle and Van Ginkel's a neck. And then you've also got a little bit of injury history with Isaiah Rodgers, one of the starting corners. So, and then, J.J. McCarthy's still listed as an ankle injury, even though he's a full participant in practice. He might not be a hundo on that ankle. And so I think, again, the Lions have a great opportunity here.
Yep. I think they're a little beat up likewise, just like we kind of were. And I think we're on the way back to getting healthy. Similar, a little different than last season, right? The transition from last season seemed like we were healthy, injured for the second half. Now we had our injuries kind of up front and where everybody's getting back to being healthy for the end of the season this year. Kind of convenient.
So do you want to segue into fantasy football?
Let's move into that. Let's move into the fun stuff now, Bill.
All right. If you've got either Jefferson, St. Brown, or JMO, I would start them all. I think JMO is going to be on fire this game coming out of the Lions bye week, and I expect him to score at least one touchdown. I think St. Brown will do his usual dirty work in the middle of the field, getting 7 to 8, 9 catches. I can't promise you end zone. It's always a good chance. And then I think of anybody on the Vikings offense, Jefferson's going to be the one to torch us. I think
it could be Jefferson or Addison in this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think either receiver could. I don't know that McCarthy's going to be able to distribute to both of them and give them equal amounts opportunity, but one of them I think will go off against us, and probably be Jefferson in the end. He has had a less than stellar season, but he's also had guys throwing to him that are not what you would have, not what he would want, I think.
Not Sam Darnold?
Not Sam Darnold at this point, right?
Anybody else you want to include on this?
Well, I think you've hit everybody. I have a feeling Monty might actually have a bigger game than Gibbs this week.
Okay.
I don't know why. I feel like this is a Montgomery game. He's been kind of missing in action lately.
Yeah.
And I feel like this could be the one where they run Monty up the gut 100 times if we get up by a touchdown or two, and they just burn the clock that way.
So on that note, do you think either team will be successful running the ball against one another? Because both defenses are stout against the run.
Yeah.
And so, do Mason and Jones have success against the Lions? I don't think they personally will. I think the leading rusher for the Vikings might actually be McCarthy, kind of coming out on bootlegs or just scrambling for his life.
I have a feeling if there's a guy that's going to run against us, it is going to be JJ.
Okay.
And he's probably going to evade our rush and run for 20 damn yards. Who knows? I don't think it'll be Jones or Mason at this point. And I do wonder, Aleem McNeil, having him back is kind of the linchpin to that run defense, right? Like now that he's back, I can confidently say we can stop the run, at least up the middle, out on the edges. Who knows?
Well,
but up the middle, we're going to be solid there. I will say I don't know that the Vikings run defense is quite as solid as ours. We'll see what happens there. I feel like we could possibly open some holes for Gibbs or Monty to run around a little bit. And again, I think it's going to be more Monty doing some grunt work with the old shoulder pads on Sunday. You had in your notes, this is a curious little section, big day for Fox. You've really taken to our punters and kickers this year, haven't you?
Yeah, I know this isn't really fantasy because
the special teams unit
what I need to do
is getting a lot of love from you.
I need to find a really, really nerdy fantasy league where punters are. Yeah. That's
what do you think you get points for from a punter? Like hang time?
Net average, hang time, all the above.
Kind of punts inside 10 yards get you 5 points or something like that.
Punts inside the 5, line. Inside the 10, inside the 20.
You get points for that. Why don't we have that? That would be incredible. You would have to pick punters on really bad teams.
God, if I only
have to pick on bad teams, that would be the one position you'd be like, I got to get a really bad offense.
If only I could speak currently to the commissioner of our league to maybe make this change. That would be so wonderful.
The commissioner of your league is never allowing this change. When we're going to burn the league down, the commissioner of the league will allow this change.
All right.
Good thinking, but probably not. All right. What's your projection for the final score here?
So you talked about it very succinctly. Minnesota is like Atlanta. They are the two worst sports towns for long-suffering fans. They have a few baseball championships each, but nothing to show for in the NBA. I mean, Atlanta can't keep an NHL team to save their life. The Wild, for how passionate Minnesota is about hockey, have done absolutely nothing. And the Vikings are 0-4 in Super Bowls and don't seem to be on track to make another one. Lions are at Ford Field. It's going to be raucous. And I think the Lions roll in this one 34-13.
You think it'll be a little bit of a track meet in the beginning?
I think it's going to be a slog for about a quarter and a half. I think the Lions...
No track meet in the beginning.
Yeah, okay. I think they're going to open it up. And then I think, to your point, I agree with you. They're going to pound Monty, run Gibbs, kind of off tackle, and milk the clock. I think one of the touchdowns for the Lions could be either on... Well, I think we could see a pick six or a fumble recovery for a touchdown. I could see Hutch maybe getting his fifth strip of McCarthy.
Okay.
And I think it's going to be a big day for the Lions. What are your thoughts?
I'm going 27-17.
All right.
Lions. I think they win by 10, but it's one of those that feels like 42-7. So it's not going to feel that close, but it is going to be that close. The Lions are something like 21st in third down conversions. And if they aren't able to run the ball on the Vikings, my biggest fear here for our offense is if we can't get the run game going against the Vikings, if they do have that stout run defense, they become a little one-dimensional. They can't work off the play action. We already haven't been doing that great on third down conversion this year. I just see that the offense might have a little bit of a struggle. I think we're going to be hoping to benefit from field position. I think our defense gives McCarthy fits, hopefully, and we end up in great field position on just about every drive, which sets us up, and we don't have to do that much work.
So that's your way of saying that Jack Fox is valuable.
Is valuable.
Okay, let's talk about Vegas. I'm poking you. Vegas thinks that the Lions are 8.5 point favorites. They've got the over-under at 48.5. If you were to take the money line, the only way to make money on that is taking the Vikes at plus 385. Any thoughts on that?
I hate it all, and here's why. I don't like to bet the spread on an NFC North game. These games just end up too close all the time.
Which is interesting because you and I both picked bigger point spreads.
I started thinking about it when I said that. You said that point spread, and I said, you know what? 27-21 sounds far more realistic in this game for one reason or another.
Okay.
Which would have been inside of that spread. But I'm staying with my 27-17, and I guess I got to take the spread too. So
yeah, I'm going to take the under.
The points. I'm going to take the points and the spread and the under probably.
Yeah, I think the under's
probably the
play.
Soundest decision now that I've backed myself into having to take the spread because of my pick. All right, so we're going to see what happens here at Ford Field, Bill. Every game, I just don't have the confidence that I think I had last year when we're going into games. Our offense just isn't quite clicking, even though a lot of the numbers are doing really well. We just aren't quite clicking along. I'm probably getting over worried for no reason at all here. I'm probably giving the Vikings way too much credit. But we'll see what happens. We'll be back with a review, a recap after the fact, win or lose. hopefully win, probably should win. And we'll go from there. Go Lions. Enjoy your weekend.
Forward down the field. Go Lions.